You're on mute, Professor. Just unmute yourself. Mm. Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
So
Yes,
we
it's
are
been
in
a while.
now. We're not recording, right?
No, now we are live now. Yes, now we
Oh,
are,
I
but
see.
before it was not.
I see. Okay,
Yes, yes. So it's been a while. I think the last time we were here was in May, when we had
correct,
our last conversation, and I think a lot has happened
correct.
since then. So it's good to see you. Good to see you again, and to really continue that discussion
Thank you.
based on the development that has taken place.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. I think we would like to welcome our audience, those who have joined us. We'll maybe give one more minute while we wait for you to join us. And yeah, so Professor, while we're waiting for our audience to join us, what have you been up to? I know the last time you went to Juba and then you're back now in Canada, I believe.
Right. Yes, I was in Juba for 30 days, for 1 month. The contract was for 20 days and then it was extended. The public consultations went very well. People were very brave, very daring. They stood their grounds. We had a lot of support from the president, from the Minister of Presidential Affairs, who was there most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we tendered our recommendations, and they were presented to this extraordinary Council of Ministers on the 17th.
Mm.
Also, I noticed the disconnect between, we will talk about this later.
Yeah, no, yeah.
The disconnect is actually very worrying between the government and the people. The government itself is not a very harmonious government, and there is
Mm.
compassion fatigue. I mean, any embassy I talk to, any donor I talk to, uh, there is very little enthusiasm. People are
Mm.
talking about the sanctions, the benchmarks. So there is a heap of issues, but we cannot be frustrated. We shall continue to do what we can.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yes, I think we've given our audience 2 minutes to join us, and I think we'll continue our session while the rest of our audience will join us sometimes when
Sure.
they can. So a quick introduction. My name is Nyanthan Hothmai. I am a program officer at the SAD Institute, and I'm also one of the moderators for South Sudanese Women Intellectual Forum. Our topic of today is about clarification on the recent resolution on the clearing and cleaning of waterways in South Sudan. Our objective of this session today is basically to have a discussion with Professor Tachia, who has been very close, who has intimately followed the issue of Jangale Canal dredging and all that discussion we have in our previous discussions. And I think it's very important to have him back to clarify some of these terms. What is clearing and cleaning? What is being clean? What is being cleared? Where is the cleaning and the clearing taking place? Where's the connection between this clearing and cleaning with the transportation system? As now, this is our new objective of why our government is proposing this task. So these are some of the issues that we'll cover here as well. We might hear as well from the professor if you have information for us. How are we going to implement this project in terms of clearing? Who's going to implement it? What items are we going to use? So it's a very highly packed conversation. And I hope you will stay with us until the end. We would like to welcome you as well to be part of the conversation. Put your comments in the comments below, and also, if you have a question, we'll have Q&A after a few questions between me and the professor. And then after that, now we'll come to you to interact with some of the questions that you've posted. With that being said, I would like to turn to Professor in the studio. We start our conversation a little bit. Just briefly tell us who you are. We all know who you are, but maybe we'll have a new audience here and what you do and what are you working now. To you.
Right. I am a retired professor and I am a senior fellow at the Institute of International Affairs, Norman Patterson School for International Affairs at Carleton University. And I am now applying to be an adjunct professor at the same institute, again in Carleton University, after I retired after 5 years. And I have been following up the issues of the Nile waters in the wider sense, the wider boundaries, for the last 50 years, 50. And I'm a supporter of the rights of South Sudan, the people of South Sudan, their rights over the Nile waters. And I have been a relentless fighter that there is no benefit to drain off water from the Sud, which belongs to the future generations as well. And I am a consultant. I do consulting work. My last job was with the government of South Sudan, invited by the president, and I shall continue the peaceful struggle until our people in South Sudan realize their rights and guard them.
Thank you. Thank you. And we've all witnessed, even how our awareness started from the beginning of these Nile water issues. You were very instrumental in terms of kickstarting the conversation. Based on that, I think we'll just go straight into our questions. And my first question goes, as somebody who has been very closely following this issue of Nile waters, and specifically previously was about dredging of the Nile River and or Barkazal and Nams River. But now the government last week came up with a new resolution based on the recommendation that came out of the public consultation. And the decision is now they will go ahead with clearing and cleaning of our waterways. These two, three key terms, the clearing and the cleaning and the waterways, is such a compacted word for a normal citizen to understand. So people are very skeptical and say that maybe what our government has done is reframe, it's basically cleaning and clearing is dredging in disguise. So as an expert and somebody who has been very close following this debate and the decision, what is your take in this? Is government really cheating us, or are they genuine in what they're proposing?
Right. Before I answer your specific question, let us have a little bit of clarification about about the semantics. You know, what is clearing, what is cleaning, what is dredging. Unequivocally, dredging is to go down with a machine and widen and deepen the course of the river, remove soil so that you have a bigger channel for the water to flow from A to B to another destination. That's dredging. We don't want that. And this is what Jungule Canal and related issues is all about. This is why the Egyptians are there. And I was told by one of the vice presidents that Egypt has an office of the Egyptian Ministry of Water and Irrigation in each of the 10 states in South Sudan. They are also manning all the gauges, all the river gauges that measure the levels of the rivers. So in all the major basins, they have repaired or installed gauges, and they are manning those gauges as well. As that's as background there. Clearing and cleaning, what we need to get from the Council of Ministers is clearing and cleaning for what purpose? According to Michael McQuay, he said it's for navigational purposes and other. Now, this is a big question mark. What is this other? So we need a clear definition. Is this for navigational purposes? If it is for navigational purposes, then the River Transport Corporation, the old River Transport Corporation that was established in 1912 and became operational in 1913, they used to clear and clean every year for 100 years. They will come around and they will see if there are tree trunks, if there are aquatic weeds, if a boat has drowned, and so on. The other clarification I need to make is that over those 100 years of operation by the River Transport Corporation, The draft, the draft is the depth of the vessel that goes into the water. So how much of a tugboat or how much of a barge goes into the water? It is 4 feet, 120 centimeters. This is where the importance of clarification comes. If it is clearing and cleaning of aquatic weeds and obstruction, there are 37 barges that have drowned in the water courses. They have to be removed. One of them is right in front of Juba. If you go and sit and have a cup of coffee along the Nile, there is one that you can see with the naked eye. If that is the objective, then we have no problem. Then we need to clear and clean to a depth of 4 feet because that is what is required for navigational purposes. And I am informed that part of the decision is that this is to be done by national contractors, but we will come to that at a later stage. Right now, clearing and cleaning for navigational purposes up to a depth of 4 feet and under the supervision of the government without any interference from a foreign country or a foreign entity, there is nothing wrong with that. I am aware of the worries of the people. But if the government is lying, let us tell them that no, you are not lying. We believe you. And we are not going to allow you to do anything other than clearing and cleaning. We are not going to allow you to dredge. And we are not going to allow the Egyptians to put these two huge drag lines that they imported, 50 tons each, with a reach of 12 meters. A bucket of 12 meters can dig deep 8 meters. Do they want to dig Bahar now for 8 meters? There will be no water left. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. And I think you have rightly put it, because we need to understand, as you said, what is cleaning, what is clearing, and what is, because the difference here is the purpose. Why are we doing this? And the thing here for me, I think the other word that they've used is the waterways, right? And when the government talk of the waterways, what exactly are they talking about? Are they talking about the White Nile River in a sense, or are they talking about the White Nile tributaries that are connected with it? Are we talking about Nam River, River Barakazal? What is it exactly are they talking about? If you're
Let me stop at the term or the word ways. Water is there. Water can be quantity, water can be history, but when you talk about way or ways, then you are talking about A to B, you are talking about movement. So when we are talking about waterways, it could mean absolutely nothing other than navigation. The same say you say highway. So waterway or waterways is a clear indication that we are talking about navigation. Let us go back to the labyrinth, to the complex and rich waterways in South Sudan. Let us linger a little bit about why are the Egyptians interested in Bahr al-Ghazal Basin, which starts with Sio, Busari, Jur, Lul, Kir, and so on. And then it comes into Bahar Naam, and then from Bahar Naam into Lake No. And any drop of water that comes into Lake No is going to go into the main Nile. Bahr al Ghazal Basin, other than the Sobat Basin, originates from South Sudan. It originates from Western Bahr al Ghazal. It does not come from any other country. So this is our water. We own it from the time the rain falls in the highlands west of Wow. And then the Siu and the Busari come, and then we come to the Sud, and the rain is falling on the Sud, and then it comes into Bahar Naam, and then it comes into Lake No. So this is our water. Nobody can claim a drop of that water. It originates in South Sudan, it runs in South Sudan, it stays in South Sudan. This is different from Sobat, which is the other main basin. Sobat is made up of the Baro and the Pibor. The Pibor is ours. The Baru is the Ethiopians. It is coming from the Ethiopian highlands. And actually, most of the water is coming from the Baru. So that's different. Both basins have a discharge of about 15 billion cubic meters of water. So if that water is drained to go north and to go to Egypt, we are in trouble. We will be giving our rights over this water to a foreign country at no cost. That will be high treason. To me, that's high treason. And what do the Egyptians want? They want about 4.5 to 4.8 billion cubic meters of water to be drained, siphoned out of South Sudan. The project was a colonial project in 1904. It remains a colonial project today. So yes, they are talking about waterways, which was a great comfort, and we need to take them to their word, and we need to call a spade a spade. When we are talking about ways, then we are talking about A to B. We are talking about transport. We are talking about movement. We are not talking about draining away. Thank you.
Thank you for really putting that, Professor. I think having the previous debate and conversation, we knew the purpose of why the government was proposing then what they call dredging was, right, to mitigate the floods, right, which we rightly refuted and said that that's not the sustainable way of managing floods. And we knew behind it, there's Egyptian that were behind it. But at least now, let's look at the transportation, right? The transportation system here, as we talk about, let's focus on why we want to clean and clear. And I think you mentioned in your first, when you answered the questions, what is being clean and what is being cleared, and how are the condition of our rivers at this point when it comes to transportation? Is there obstacles that are prevented that could prevent the transportations of, as, let's say, barges, as you said before? I don't know if my question is clear.
Yeah, it is. It
Okay.
is. During the deliberations of this extraordinary Council of Ministers meeting on Monday, the 17th of October, there were heroes and no heroes. Mama Rebecca was one of the heroes. The president was one of the heroes. They stood firm that we are not giving our waters anywhere, that we need to do studies. The purpose of the meeting was to tender, to explain, and to table the recommendations of the public consultations. The president decided that I consulted my people and I am not going to ignore them. So he commissioned his minister to do the presentation, to convene the extraordinary meeting. It was not a regular meeting. So that's what the whole, it was one agenda. That's what the whole agenda. What happened as well is that the oil companies, which are going wild in the oil areas, nobody controlled them. They have got no boss. Trust me. I know what I'm talking about. They are doing what they want with a lot of damage. They built two bridges, what they call bridges. They are actually not bridges. They blocked Bahar Naam. And then they made a small opening, a small culvert, which is not enough for the water or the aquatic weeds to go downstream. So it got blocked behind these two bridges. Someone during the meeting said, let us dynamite these two bridges. And then a very wise person said, not now, because the people are using this wrong bridge. Let us build the proper bridge and then we dynamite these two. As and when that happens, a very big part of the problem will be resolved, because then we have got natural flow. However, when we have got such projects, if anybody wants to touch any of the waterways or the roads, our security need to be there. Our army need to be there. It should not be left for the state administration and the oil companies. So yes, there is obstruction. Yes, there is massive. I have got photographs of massive waterways. This is like a bush. It has to be removed. But I need to know where is this blockage? Where are these weeds? Coordinates, height above sea level, longitude and latitude. I want to quantify it. I want to know where am I going to dump it when I take it out of the river? What am I going to do with it? And then we have the other problem that we talked about earlier, that there is 36, 37, 38 barges and boats that are in the waterways. Yes, they have got to be removed. They have got to be removed. And most of them are actually visible to to the naked eye. So the meeting was actually quite hot because there were forces and anti-forces. There were people who knew what they were talking about, and there were people who did not know what they were talking about. What damage will happen if their vision and considerations and views are taken? But at the end of the day, I hats off to the president. He stood his grounds and he said nobody is touching anything unless there are studies. And this takes us to studies for what? Now this is the missing link. The Council of Ministers, the minister or Marial, Bernardo Marial need to come out and tell us what is the objective. If it is navigational, then there are certain ministries that need to be included. If it is navigational and non-navigational, then this is another set of affairs. If it is non-navigational, then this is another set of affairs. Thank you. You are you are muted, Niason. You are muted.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. I think you put it rightly. I think what we need to focus on as public is that we need to be sure, the cleaning and the clearing is for navigational purposes, and that
Yeah.
is for river transportations, which is very important either in our local economy or even the connection within either the region with the north. That's very important.
Yeah.
So just to put it right to our viewers, if this is really for navigational purpose, we need it. We need the cleaning and we need the clearing going forward. If there's hidden agenda, that's of course, then that's a different set of affairs. And yeah, do you wanted to say something?
Yes, and also this is a chain. You don't want to clear and clean for navigational purposes when you don't have tugboats, when you do not have barges, and you want to navigate from where to where, at what time of the year, what is the now expected number of passengers, what is the cargo that you are going to carry. So the feasibility study to be done for navigational purposes is completely different from a feasibility study done for environmental purposes or even for hydro politics or hydro policies and objectives. So this is why the clarification is important. I have tried my best to get a copy of the resolution itself. I contacted Mama Rebecca through her assistant, no luck. I contacted Bernaba, no luck. I contacted other ministers, no luck. I contacted Africano, no luck. Nobody either has the text of the resolution or is able to access. And why is it for Knox? Why is it such a secret? I cannot understand that. The resolution of the Council of Ministers is not for the Council of Ministers, it is for the people. These are delegates of the people. They have no right to hide their resolutions, and I will come to that later on. Thank you.
And I think lack of lack of transparency, right? Now,
Yeah,
public
yeah,
has, public has reason why they should be skeptical, because
yeah,
if you really the purpose of what you are stating is true, I don't think anybody will be against it. But then
correct.
what is the lack of, of providing, because it's so vague. It's just like
Yeah,
that one statement, oh, we've decided to clear and clearing waterways, obstacles.
yeah,
And I was like, okay, yeah, but can you give us more meat so that we know what you are planning to
that's
do?
right. That's
So
right.
I think we have, as a public, one thing we could focus on is like we need clarification. We need more transparency. Give us more details. of
Yeah.
what is the decision that you've made.
Yeah.
So this is something we can call. Um, I don't know, let's talk a little bit about the transportation system, the river transportation system. I don't know how much do you know about, let's say, within South Sudan, how developed or where is the river transportation system taking place? Do you have any idea? So that at least we know that this is something we need, and this is already something that is being developed, is something that is going to add something into our economy. I don't know if you have anything about our local river transportation system.
Right. The river transportation as a modality of moving people from A to E literally ceased to exist in 2011. With the independence of South Sudan, the borders were closed, quite a bit of animosity, declared and undeclared, and the old river transport that started in 1912 ceased to operate between Kosti and Juba. And during the high rain season, it used to go through Shambi and then back into the main river down to Juba. And it could have gone up to Nimuli if not for the Fula Rapids. I mean, the boats cannot actually go through the Fula Rapids. And then you have got the Beden Rapids as well, a little bit north of Juba. So, to my knowledge, right now there is no commercial structured uh, business where the river transport in South Sudan. You have got the small boats and you have got the movement of the oil companies. But I am not aware of a network. I am not aware of the resumption. Neither does it exist. Certainly, Kosti, Rank, Malakal, Juba, that line, Bor coming to Juba, that's not functional now. And this is why there is not only clarification, but there is need for follow up. What does the Council of Ministers and the Presidency mean by clearing waterways for navigational purposes? What are you going to navigate? Do you have funds? Someone told me that $1 billion over 5 years have been tendered to the Council of Ministers. That's 200 million per year. If you divide just 1 billion by 5, that's a lot of money. Where is that money going to go? Is all that going to go into the clearing? Is part of it going to go into river transport? Is there going to be hydro projects? So again, I understand that this was a concept note that was produced by the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. So we need that to be made public. And why only the Ministry of Environment and Forestry? Are they the only stakeholders? If there is nothing that will tamper with the ecology, nothing that will tamper uh, with the climate, nothing that will tamper with the environment, then the role of that ministry is actually very small. So who is the spearhead? I think that is the biggest uh, black hole that we have now. We need this resolution to be analyzed, to be clarified. If the public needs to have other consultations, then we do other consultations. If there is need for national experts or international experts, we bring them on board. And I will come to the committee that has been formed at a later stage. Thank you.
No, thank you. I read yesterday an article that in May, South Sudan and Sudan, I think either signed an agreement or Amdu came to Juba, and one of his visit was a decision that to resume the river transportation system to open between Sudan and South Sudan. And of course, this is where now we need to know the background of why the government is making decision they are making? Is it part of decision that now Sudan and South Sudan have decided to reopen their river system? So that's one. And I actually read a feasibility study by United Nations Office for Projects, and they did actually feasibility studies in 2018, looking at the Burgess system, the river system within South Sudan. And of course, I think from that study, um, they they look at South Sudan, and of course, the study did indicate that there's a lot of obstacles within the river system, especially at the Nile. If we were to, let's say, transport goods or people, let's say, from Juba all the way to Kosti. And within South Sudan, first of all, if you look at Juba and Bor, apparently there's a lot of obstacles there, and that the river is actually very narrow. And somehow the report recommended the word that we don't want to hear, the dredging, to sort of whiten the river a little bit. But that could not, as you said, what is the purpose and to what depth or to what extent are we modifying the river system? And one of the biggest finding was actually the Bentiu, because of I think from Lake No all the way to Bentiu, it's impassable, as you said, because there's a lot of vegetation, and even sometimes one could even go further, even the flooding that is going in Bentiu. We need to clear these aquatic life out of that region. So the study really goes in detail. So this study was actually funded by Japan government, and they had a recommendation. And one of the things is say that river transportation system, it's cheaper if we are to compare how we are transporting our goods from the East Africa. So it is a good alternative, but of course we need to look at the trade-offs between the environmental degradation that this will cause and then the economic benefit this will cause. This will benefit. So there's a lot of when it comes to river transportation, we definitely need clarification from the government. Come out and give us details, because as what they give us, it's positive. But then what is the lack of transparency? So I just wanted to add on that in terms, I think there's already a move that we need to develop our river transportation, I mean, our river system. But where is the Ministry of Transport, as you said? Why is it only the Ministry of Environment? There's a lot of stakeholders that need to be involved. So I just wanted to add that before we move on to our next question.
Just one point that you raised, and that's resuming transportation between Kosia and Juba. There is a difference between political rhetoric and between reality. As we speak now, there is no cooperation agreement, there is no trade agreement between Sudan and South Sudan. It does not exist. So whatever is happening is a kind of legal smuggling, a kind of individuals who will have a load here or a load there. But there is no credible agreement between the North and the South. And this is not the first time, or the second time, or the third time, or the fourth time. They bring this down and then nothing happened. You need to do the demarcation of the borders to start with before any vehicle can cross. And you need to put the stations, and you need to put the staff, and you need to put the project, and you need to put the equipment. All the equipment has perished, be it in the north or in the south. The headquarters of the River Transport Corporation was in the Khartoum North. Does not no longer exist. So for me, this is for political consumption at this stage. And the fact that there is a document or there is a meeting does not mean there is a project. For a
Mhm.
project, we need to see a project document. We need to see phases. We need to see funding. We need to see a commission set up to do the implementation. Right now, that does not exist. Studies and studies and studies have been done. And a study that comes out of the blue, funded, and then there is a report, and then the report stays in the shelf. This does not actually benefit the people or benefit the country. We want action-oriented feasibility studies. Feasibility studies to come to a political objective. That's why we are keen now to know what is the political objective. Is it navigation? Then we do the study for navigation. I cannot do navigation for all of South Sudan. So where are the vital areas? Do I
Mhm.
want to go north and south? Then I will be talking Nimuli to Malakal. Do I want to go east and west? Do I want to go to Wow? So we have got to classify these objectives. Where are the goods and the products that need to be moved?
Coming from. Mhm.
Now we are talking about diversifying the income. As we speak, when South Sudan separated in 2011, they went away with 350,000 barrels of oil per day. As we speak now, the production is 120,000 barrels. One third of the wells and the production, actual production in 2011. And now South Sudan is talking to Ethiopia so that instead of the oil going through the pipeline through the north and then to Port Sudan, to the Red Sea, it can go along the Sobat River, other rivers, or by road somehow, and then into Ethiopia and then into Djibouti. This discussion is already there. So there are actually lots of ideas. We need them to be filtered down into a project that the people can understand. Thank you.
Thank you. I am of the belief that definitely when it comes to economic development in South Sudan, the more we diversify, the better. You know, at least we have through
Yeah,
road, we have access to East Africa, we have access to Ethiopia, as well we have access, to Sudan. So at least, we are not our lifeline is not only one like now, it's through Nimli, which is very risky for a whole country. So I
yeah,
think all we need is transparency, right? Government need to come up, and definitely it's not just about saying it. We need implementations, and we need mechanism how this is going to be implemented. And this now takes me
right,
to action. I think you've mentioned before there's a lot we don't know. How is this going to be implemented? And you've talked about there's a committee that has been formed. I don't know. What do you know about this committee? What is the objective? What is the mandate of this committee going forward?
right, right. The idea of the committee came from two sources. The first source was the public consultations recommendations. It was very clear that this is not to be left for the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. It is not to be left for the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation. We need a commission. We need a national commission. We need a national body that's not under the administrative control of any minister. And probably the president himself should chair or have oversight over that commission. But our recommendation was to elevate the file from the ministerial level to a national level. That was the objective. And then when I felt that the recommendations were not being presented, I sent an appeal to the president and he read it and he took action on it. And he said he commissioned Barnaba to work with me so that we can develop this. And I'm going to do that. I am in contact with Dr. Marial and we will do that. So the objective of the commission, and as I look into who else is with them, it is the Ministry of Health, Humanitarian Affairs, Wildlife, and Interior. That's what came out of Michael McQuay. Ministry of Water Resources is not there. Ministry of Transportation is not there. Ministry of Environment and Forestry is not there.
Not there.
Is he
Mhm.
was he just giving an example? So I am waiting also for clarity. What is the membership and where is civil society? Where are the national experts? So the fact that a commission has been enacted, that is certainly a very good step. But then the devil is in the details. We have got to see what the details are. The commission has got to be a national one. It has got to be all inclusive. It has got to have funding and it has got to have some teeth. We don't want it to be a name. We want it to have the authority to make sure that our waters are preserved and nobody medals in them, because there was one minister who actually signed an MOU. Someone from the UN, he told me that when I said this is a sellout, he said, no, this is high treason. And it was. It was. It's in a website. I made it public. Finally, I managed to get the MOU and I made it public. So we need to be careful to guard against such games and such damage to happen. I understand that Dr. Barnaba is out of the country now. That's the last message he gave me. I tried to see if somebody else could give me this report. I would encourage you and your institution to see if you can get a copy of that. But I will come to this later on. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think this come now to everything is vague. We don't even know how is this being implemented and what is this committee. So there's so
Yeah,
much that we don't know about
yeah,
this project.
yeah,
You've talked before. I want to go back a little bit. You talked before about there's a proposal of $1 billion for the period of 5 years. Do
yeah.
you know where is this source of money coming from? Who's providing?
I understand that the concept note was produced by the Ministry of Forestry, by the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. But I don't have the copy. I requested a copy of the study, and the person with whom I am in contact just ignored my request. So I don't have a copy of that. And if the $1 billion is for environment purposes, that's a lot of money. Neither the ministry nor all the ministries together, they don't have the capacity to implement that kind of project. This is what we call implementation capacity. Implementation capacity in South Sudan is very weak. So if this amount has been approved, who tendered the concept note, for what purposes, what are the projects, who is going to implement them? There was a mention of the Dutch, the government of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Very good people. They stood with the people of South Sudan through hell and high water. I have a lot of regard and respect for them. Uh, they, there is not such money that is going to come. And whatever this venture is going to happen, it will be in what I call the soft pillar, the pillar of studies, training, whatever have you. But there is no money to bring $1 billion for what? And why would the Ministry of Environment have $1 million? What do they want to do with it? $1 billion. That's 200 million per year. What are the projects under that? What authority is going to manage the expenditure of that? What are the details of this concept note? And this will take me to the disconnect between the government and the people, which you can talk about later on. Thank you.
Thank you. You've mentioned before, and already, as we've discussed last time, you mentioned that there are equipment already as we speak within South Sudan, and those
Yeah,
equipment, the purpose of those equipment was different from what is being proposed.
yeah.
Is there a way we could use? Would that be wise for government to use those equipments, or would that be completely a red light or a red flag that something is going on if we go to use those equipment that are already in the country?
Niaton, that equipment came through Sudan. It started with crossing the borders between Egypt and Sudan in a place called Argin. And I got the bill of lading of that equipment, 21 trucks and 22 drivers. 21 drivers driving the trucks, 12-meter trucks, and one foreman. They were stopped and they were refused passage through Sudan. Somehow, they managed to remove that stoppage and they came to South Kordofan. The Miseria captured them and they asked for a ransom. The Miseria don't care about the equipment. And the information I have is that a ransom of $50,000 was paid. I have a copy of the bill of lading. The equipment, all 21 trucks, are not consigned to the government of South Sudan. They are not consigned to the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation. They are consigned to the mission of the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation of Egypt in South Sudan. So equipment is being sent by Egypt to an Egyptian organization in South Sudan. The trucks arrived. When we stirred up the whole thing, there was a stop. And then the cranes, because the two drag lines are 50 tons each. To offload 50 tons, you need a crane that's about 75 tons capacity. They were brought in from Egypt and they offloaded all the equipment, and the equipment is now discharged. The passports of the 22 people, the 22 Egyptians, were sent ahead of time to stamp visas. We went against that, but somehow the visas were stamped and the drivers came in. So there is a government within the government in unity state. How does that happen? There is a fracture within the system that the president need to attend to and the council of ministers need to attend to. The two drag lines, which is the main pieces of equipment, the bucket has a reach of 12 meters. If you have 12 meters reach, you can actually dig down up to 8 or 9 meters. If you want to do aquatic weeds clearance, all you need is about 4 meters bucket. The Egyptian equipment has 12 meters, but this cannot be for aquatic weeds. There is no way. Who is with them? Who allowed that? Who is doing the cover up? God knows. All these are question marks. Some of the responsible people at the level of undersecretaries and so on, sometimes they give us information, sometimes they don't give us information. So who is patriotic and nationalistic and who is not is still a big question mark. I talked to the commander of the engineering corps in the People's Forces of South Sudan. And he told me that they have the equipment, they have the personnel to do jobs like that. All over the world, when there is contracting on such delicate areas and issues, the security forces of the country will be there with an eye 24 hours a day. So we would like to involve our security forces. We would like to involve the engineering corps in supervising even our national contractors day and night. And to conclude this point, this is not a job for a foreign contractor or a foreign country to meddle in. Thank you.
And I think this is very clear that one of the indicators that the objective of what the government really want to do is not clean and clearing. One of it would be what equipment are they using and what is the involvement of Egyptian in here? Because we know the
They,
purpose. Yeah.
yeah, this equipment, when I talked to the Undersecretary of Water Resources, and I am on the record now, he told me that this equipment will be turned over to the government of South Sudan. When, how, why is it turned over? Were they the ones who ordered it in the first place, or were they the Egyptians who just decided to send it out there? So there are lots of black holes in that area, and we need the black box. We want the black box to come out so that we decipher what is actually happening, what is actually going on. But unless I survey the equipment item by item, I can actually not answer your question. Is this the right equipment for the purpose of the Council of Ministers? Is it part of it? Can we modify it? Can we control it so that it does the job? All that really are within this, what I call the black box, that we need to find and we need to decipher. Thank you.
I think we've come to questions. We know there's so many things that are unclear of this project. There's a lot of gray area that as well we don't understand. But as an expert and someone who's very keen on this topic, how, as an expert, what do you think is the safe way of implementing this? I think you've mentioned some of the recommendation already, but how can we safely implement if the objective is for navigation purposes?
Right. Let me enumerate them uh, in a concise manner. The first step is really to have a commission that is way and above the current ministries, because the current ministries do not have the institutional capacity to even do their job of today. They are lacking in staff. Anyone who is brilliant, who gets trained, he goes and finds another job. And I am on the record. I talked to the Undersecretary of Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation in his office. And I said, what is your total workforce? And he said 200. Oh, and how many of them report to work? He said only 100, 50%. I said, why doesn't the other 100 report to work? And he said a couple of reasons. The first one is many of them haven't been paid for 6 months, so they don't come to work. And many of them do not have enough money to pay for the transport and the breakfast to come to the ministry. So he's working with 50% capacity staff. I talked to one of the embassies that did capacity building for the same ministry, and they said we train them, and the good guys, as soon as they get trained, they go and find the job for 10, 12, 15, 20 times the salary. I asked the same undersecretary how much his salary was, and he did calculations and we converted it to US dollars. It was $37 per month. Undersecretary of a ministry. So what happens if you follow up the rate of travel? These guys, they hop out of the plane to hop back into the plane again in a week's time. The reason is the per diem, the $100 per day. That's what they're living on. And there is no management, there is no oversight on the work of these ministries. The rate of travel of staff in South Sudan is worrying. The embassies are complaining, the consultants are complaining. People just don't have enough time to sit and run the business of their ministries. So there are structural faults and structural defaults within the system that the presidency need to attend to. Thank you.
And you've mentioned as well who would be part of these commissions. And I think these are recommendations from the public consultations. I
Correct.
know there's line ministry and then other stakeholders as well who are involved.
Right. Well, the Council of Ministers have already ruled on that, and they have already commissioned Dr. Bernardo Marial to head the committee, which means they have moved the whole file to the presidency, because Bernaba is not standing alone. Bernaba is the Minister of Presidential Affairs. So apparently, because of the strong stand of the president and listening to the sound of the people, they have moved the oversight to the presidency. I was actually very happy with it. This was not our recommendation, but we are happy with it. It is certainly a step in the right direction. Now we need to talk to Barnaba and see what is his views. What are the details if this is a commission, and if it is representative, and if it is technical, and if it will involve national experts, if it will involve the academia, then well and good. What are the terms of reference? And we want the terms of reference to come out of the presidential decree so that nobody crosses the line. They are way up there. They represented the president. So no minister could come and mess up the work that they are doing. That has not happened yet as we speak. If that does not happen, we, the people, are going to go back to the president and we will tell him that his instructions have not been followed. I am very happy that it was the president himself who presided over that meeting. And he was extremely strong and determined that let us not play games and let us do the right thing. And they enacted this commission. And I think it was a step forward. It is not complete, it is not perfect, but we are certainly in a better position that we were before the 17th of October. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think I heard you say before, if the committee as well, we really don't know much what is the mandate of the committee. Is it the commission that is being formed, or is it mandated to establish the commissions? Because if you've talked before, some of the
Yeah.
important ministries are not actually involved on the committee. Why is that the case? Because we need the Minister of
Yeah.
Environment,
Yeah.
the Road and Transportation, and all those important ministries. So there's still a lot as well, for us to
Yeah.
know what is it the mandate of this committee. Professor, I will give it to you. I want to shift to a different question, which was left from our last conversation. But I want to give you an opportunity if there's something you want to add from our discussion, something we've left out, for you to bring that up before we change our conversation. I'm looking at
Yes.
we don't have questions yet. So once we have questions from the audience, then we'll,
We'll go
uh,
for all right.
yeah, okay.
Let me take you to the comment that I passed that there is a disconnect between the people and the government. And in any country in the world, it is the government that go to the people do not go to the government. The people elect the government, put it in place, and they expect it to do the job that they want the government to do. So the reporting back and the consultations is from the government back to the people. You mandated us, we're now asking you about A, B, C, and D. But let me talk about the disconnect and let me tell you how isolated our government is. The Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. This is the ministry in charge of drafting and keeping the laws of the country. And as a citizen, if I want a passport, if I want a nationality, if I want to know how to register my piece of land, I go into the website of the Ministry of Justice and see what the law says. The Ministry of Justice, madam, hasn't got a website. As we speak, the Ministry of Justice hasn't got a website. No contact. Worse than that, if you go into the sites of the FBI, if you go into the sites of the American Aid and others, you will find that the government of South Sudan has a website and it is listed as http double dots double slash www.goss.ss. When we are done, Google that. You will get the following: 404 file not found. So, madam, as we speak, our government of South Sudan hasn't got a functioning website. The Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation hasn't got a website. The SPLM, the ruling party, hasn't got a website. The international and national experts, we had a long meeting with them, and I volunteered to pay for the website. And I said, just give me one page. What do you want? $500, I will pay it. Until today, nobody contacted me. The ruling party hasn't got a website. The Ministry of Environment and Forestry, this is a technical ministry. You go to Open Africa, this is an organization. Open Africa has a website for the ministry and it goes http double dots double slash mef ssd.org. You get the response, this site cannot be reached. So the Ministry of Environment and Water Resources, which is now in contact with all these international organizations, hasn't got a website. The only website that is working is the e-service of the government of South Sudan, and most of that website is coming soon. They put the section and they put coming soon. It is non functional. So the government is living in an island. And when we were doing the consultations, one of the vice presidents, he got angry and he said, we are the government. I stood up and I walked out of the meeting. I did not say it loud, but I said, the people around me heard it. I said, and we are the people. You are the government, we are the people. You are there because of me. So there is this assumption that we are the government. That means we can do what we want. And unless that concept is removed, and unless there is better connectedness, and there is better care and concern, and there is better communication, two-way communication, and there is better listening, I don't see the situation in South Sudan to improve. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very important to really add that. And now that we don't even have, because website is a means of communication with your government where you get the information that you needed. And even
Yeah,
now, if you wanted any information, you go to any of the ministries. It's a struggle to even find somebody
yeah,
who can give you the information. So how
yeah,
does the government, share or even inform citizens of what they're doing? So I
yeah.
totally do agree. There's a huge disconnect, and it's good that you've highlighted that, and hopefully our government will hear that. Um, so I we've discussed about the resolutions, and we know there's a lot of black box. There's a lot we don't know, and what we want more information. We need transparency of all that. So I think we leave it for now, and I think what we decided as South Sudan Zoom Intellectual Forum is to plan as well a follow-up discussion,
Sure.
because I think we need to have a recurring discussions so that we add, if we get more information where there's not a lot of information now, and then now we can keep analyzing. So our next session as well, we'll probably expand the participants to have different perspective and what they think and what they know, because all of them have their own little way contact of getting information.
Right.
So we'll leave it
Right.
at that. Yeah, yeah.
Right. So for the coming session, there is one of your audience who actually asked a question in writing. He sent you a message in writing.
Yes, yes.
So you can add that to the coming
To
session,
the,
and I will
to
be
the
more than glad. Yeah, I'll be more than glad to answer it.
okay. All right. No, I take
Right.
that.
That's great. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you for the interaction, and thank you for the probing question. This was quite interesting, and I hope
Very
we covered
interesting.
the
Thank you.
grounds.
Thank
Okay,
you. You're
madam.
always very insightful. So it's always
Thank
good
you.
to learn from you, and you take this to heart. So definitely, I think when you come with information, we take it serious. So thank you always for being
Okay.
available and to
Yeah.
take us forward. So I think getting away from, I mean, moving away from here, I think our recommendation would be we need more transparency of what is being cleared,
That's
what's
right.
being cleaned, and what ways the government need to give us more information,
Right.
and also the
And and
commission.
and 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 please pound the people responsible with clarifications. Send the
Yes.
message to Marial.
Mhm.
Mama Rebecca
Rebecca.
was in that meeting. She's a
Mhm.
woman. She's a patriotic woman. I met her in her home, and she's a leader, and you are a woman. She's a woman. Send her a message. If you don't have her contact, I am willing to send you the contact of her assistant, and ask her for clarification. Ask her to get. We have got to create this connectedness. We have got to keep asking questions, and we have got to run after our rights. Rights are taken. Rights are never given. Yeah. Okay.
And I think this goes as well to our audience.
Yeah.
We all,
Yeah.
the citizens of these, we all have our little connections with the government
Yeah.
in whatever way. Please get information. Let's,
Yeah.
whatever little information we have, share with us. Let's get information as much as possible, because we
Correct.
feel this is a good objective of why government is doing this, but we're being skeptical. Why are they hiding if it's
Yeah.
this good? Yeah. So thank you, Professor, and looking forward to having in our next session.
Okay, madam. God
um,
bless.
Thank you. And for our viewers, thank you so much. For those who have stick with us until the end, the recording is going to be online. It's going to be on South Sudan Zoom Intellectual Forum page, and also it's going to be as well on our YouTube channel. So continue. For those, share with your followers, share with your friends and your family, those who will also benefit from this discussion. Thank you so much, and for now, until we see you
Okay,
next
madam.
time. All
Take
right.
care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.